What's up guys, welcome back to the Piston Show. I'm Kashi Dillon and today we are in beautiful Melaka. Hence why you're going to be seeing a lot of kids with their parents running around. You're seeing this beautiful shoreline behind me. And I got here with this, the new Proton X50. It was launched a couple of months ago, roughly about 2 months ago, and I'm finally getting my hands on it. And I'm glad that I did, because after driving it and spending some time with it, I think Proton has a real winner on their hands. Well, I say that like there was anything wrong with the previous generation model. Actually, in fact, the previous generation model was already an impressive car. Hence why Proton managed to shift roughly about 140,000 units of the previous generation X50. Now though, with the new X50, I think Proton is going to continue its success story with regards to the X50. So there are things about this car that are particularly great. There are people that, well, don't like the design so much, but I quite like it. So in this video, I'm going to take you for a walk around, show you what's good, what's not, and such. So stick around. So let's start off with the design, obviously. Now this is obviously the biggest update to the car. And it has split opinions, as I said earlier during the opening of this video. But no matter what you think of the design of the X50, you have to agree that it is a bold leap forward. I think that it's a good-looking evolution of the previous generation X50. It's sportier, it's bolder, and I think it will appeal to a wider, perhaps younger audience. Now this gaping frontal area over here, now this is what has split opinions a little bit. So I can sort of understand, but I particularly like the headlights and this area over here, the ethereal bow, grille and such. So for me, I think Proton has got a winner on their hands with regards to the design. But as I say in all my reviews, design is always subjective. Some people like the Mona Lisa and some people like Van Gogh, just using art as a reference. Well, one thing that I think that I do not quite understand is this thing over here, because usually when there are vents on the bonnet or on the hood, it's usually to aid cooling, but this is just an ornament and it doesn't particularly do anything. So it might as well not be there. Just a thought. Anyway, this is the flagship variant. You get 18-inch wheels. If you go for the entry-level version, you get 17-inch wheels. And then over here, now this is where things start to get really interesting. Because usually the shoulder line continues from here all the way to the back. But this line over here drops down and the shoulder line starts from here. Looks really good, to my eyes at least. And then this chrome line over here, now this splits the bottom from the top of the car. Now being the flagship, you get a blacked out top. So it doesn't matter what color that you choose, the top of the car is always going to be black and it looks really good. So this splits the black from the green. You also get silver roof rails over there, and then further at the back, now this is where things start to get a little bit interesting as well, because you get the tail lights that are connected by this LED light bar over there. And then obviously you get supposedly supposed to get quad exhaust. Those are not really quad exhaust, they are just twin exhausts placed on either end, but the quad exhaust obviously makes it look more dramatic. And then you also get this roof spoiler at the top over there. And a powered tailgate. Important, especially at this price range. Unfortunately, you do not get a spare wheel, but or do you? There you go. That is a space saver wheel, my friends. Hidden neatly away. Now though, the design, I hope that we can somewhat agree that it is undoubtedly a good looking design. I really like this green color, it suits the car really well. Now though, we go inside. But before we go inside, I would just like to remind you that Proton calls this an all-new model. Now this again has split opinions, particularly in the automotive journalism fraternity, because some say that this is not exactly a new model, an all-new model, because if you're going to use the word all-new, everything has to be all new. So the platform, suspension components, and a little bit of the oily parts are carried over from the previous generation model. Well, I know a lot of car makers out there that usually carry over the platforms and such, all in the name of cost saving. So I don't really blame Proton for doing that. So I'm just going to go with whatever Proton says over here and call this an all-new model. Besides, the design, the interior, the engine, and a lot of these significant parts over here are all new. So I'm going to use the word all new. Anyway, that is debatable, I know. Now, the other thing that is worth noting over here, that this is a Geely product, but the interior is a Proton product. Let's go. So the interior of the Proton X50. So even though this is a Geely product, but this interior is all Proton, so I was told. And this is a great thing what Proton has achieved over here, because after spending some time with it, poking and prodding it, I like the layout. It's very minimalistic. Obviously, it's in line with the entire Proton design language, because even the EMA 7 is roughly about this layout as well. I've even driven the Proton EMAS 5, roughly about the same as well. And now this looks and feels really good. The quality is great. I like the minimalist layout. You get a giant infotainment system over there. You get a bigger instrument cluster over here. You get a charge pad and a place to keep your phone. These buttons over here are roughly about the same as the EMA 7. You get cup holders, obviously a lot of space to keep your things and such. So all in all, the interior of the X50, I feel, is a really nice place to be. Now, a couple of things that I should point out is that because this center console is so high up, so if you're on the taller side of the spectrum, it forces your knee inwards and this somewhat gets in your way. So you sort of have to sit with your knee placed at the bottom, never high up, and that's how you can free up some space and such. So it's not really a deal breaker. It's just a matter of understanding the ergonomics of the car, which I've said is pretty good. Now, the other one thing that I really like, in fact, there are a few things that I really like, so bear with me, that I really like is this sunshade over here. This is a not fully blacked out, but it's like a darkened sunshade. So if you ever forget your sunglasses, this really helps. And this is the first time that I've seen it in a car in Malaysia, and I think this is a really good idea. Now, on top of that, you still get your vanity mirror. It's lighted, very cool. And it's not only on this side, but this darkened out sunshade is also on the passenger side. Feels very like it's inspired by the aeronautics industry. Now, let's talk a little bit about the infotainment system. You obviously get a wireless Apple CarPlay as well as Android Auto. Now, the thing about Apple CarPlay in some cars is that when Apple CarPlay is launched, you won't be able to swipe down or up, and you always have to exit Apple CarPlay to be able to access the menu. But with Apple CarPlay in the X50, you can still have easy access to your controls, particularly the drive modes, which you get 4: Sport, Eco, Sport, Eco, Comfort, and Adaptive. Adaptive is new to the X50. It works by sort of reading and understanding your driving style, and it adapts the car accordingly. So that's very cool. Now notice that there are no air conditioning controls over here. That's because they are placed over here. Very clever and very easy access So I think Proton deserves some credit for what they've achieved over here. I really take my hats off to them. And now though, check out the crispness, the clarity of the screen. It's just so nice, so crisp. And obviously they've done a grand job. So from here you access a lot of the other things, such as the brightness, your Bluetooth system, your headlights, your 360 panoramic camera, which is quite clear, by the way. That's really good. So you access almost everything from this screen over here. Now, the other thing that Proton has achieved with the X50, for the first time ever, you get voice command in Bahasa Melayu. Check this out. Hi Proton, buka sunroof.
Baiklah, sedang buka bumbung panorama.
Terima kasih.
Peta belum dibuka. Sila buka peta dan cuba lagi.
So anyway, this apparently took Proton, cancel Proton.
Peta belum dibuka. Peta.
This apparently took Proton over 330,000 man hours to develop, because obviously this is not something that was developed by China, by Geely or what. This was developed in-house by Proton. So Proton deserves a lot of credit for what they've deserved over here. Hi Proton, tutup.
Peta belum di. Baiklah.
Hi Proton, tutup sunroof.
Peta belum dibuka.
Hi Proton.
Sila buka peta dan cuba lagi.
It's obviously confused. Maybe my voice. Hi Proton.
Peta belum dibuka. Sila buka peta dan cuba lagi.
Hi Proton. Tutup sunroof.
Baiklah, saya akan tutupkan bumbung panorama.
All in all, really well done, no doubt about it. So everything is roughly all new. And notice the color difference over here. This is a two-tone.
Baiklah, jumpa lagi.
This is a two-tone color. So this is only in the flagship variant. All the rest get black. And then this steering wheel, however, is the same steering wheel as the previous generation model, which is a bit of a bummer. You know, you made such a nice car, maybe update the steering wheel. This would be a nice touch to an otherwise really awesome car. So besides that, the gear selector is missing from here. That's because it's placed over here on the column, the steering column over here. So this, I've got some comments saying, in my previous video about the X50, some were asking, or some were saying that this is very dangerous, because what happens if you accidentally mistake the gear selector for your indicator light and such. Guys, girls and boys, nothing's gonna happen. If you're driving and you accidentally turn this, it's just gonna go into neutral. And when you're driving, if you go into neutral, you press it back down, it's just going to go into the gear that it's supposed to be. So for example, if you were driving in 5th gear and you accidentally put it in neutral and you put it back in drive, it's going to go back into 5th gear. This is a very clever system. And Proton is not the first company to do this. Even classic cars many years ago had their gear selectors over here. This is obviously electric. The classic ones were mechanical. But anyway, nothing to worry about. I think by placing the gear selector over here, it has freed up this space over here and given this, you know, otherwise you wouldn't be able to get a charge pad, you wouldn't be able to get all of this stuff over here. So all in all, looks and feels very nice. You also get 72 different ambient lights. Now, let me show you the back seats, then we talk a little bit about the engine, and then we go for a drive. Check this out, guys. Check out the amount of legroom I have, amount of headroom that I have. It's a comfortable place to be. The back seats of the X50. You know, if you put this down, what do you get? You get cup holders, you get one Type A, one Type C USB port, you get your own air conditioning vents. One thing I like about the back seats of the X50 is this, the shoulder line of the car. Now, the shoulder line is actually higher than my own shoulder line. And that makes me feel like I'm sitting really deep inside the car. And despite the shoulder line being so high, the window is actually quite big, so that lets in a lot of light. And right behind my head, there's another window at the back over here as well. And that combined with the ones over there just lets in a lot of light and makes the interior look and feel very spacious. It feels spacious, it is spacious, and this just makes it feel very secure. So the back seats of the X50, nice place to be. You get ISOFIX mounts over here, which is great for your baby seats, which is, by the way, a must to have if you have babies, infants, toddlers and such. Please, please, please always use a baby seat. So with the X50, you can do exactly that. So the engine is probably one of the most welcomed update for the X50. Gone is the 3-cylinder engine, and in here is the new 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. It is still a 1.5 litre engine though, which is not a bad thing because it makes 181 PS and 290 Newton meters of torque, which is 4 PS and 35 Newton meters more than before. 0 to 100 is seen off in 7.6 seconds. And it is mated to the same 7-speed dual clutch gearbox as before. Power is sent to the front wheels. Now, unlike the previous generation model, you get the same engine across the board. So no matter which variant you go for, it's going to be powered by the same engine. So makes sense, right? They should have done that from the very beginning. And I think that now, no matter which model you choose, you're going to be able to enjoy the smoothness of the 4-cylinder engine. Now, the problem with the previous 3-cylinder engine is that it was loud, it was rough and such. Sounded like a diesel engine. It had that mechanical, very clatter. It had that diesel clatter, which was, no, not very nice. This is quite smooth. And despite having 1 cylinder more, it is still 4.7% more economical than the previous generation model. Now, one of the key updates to this engine is that the timing belt has been replaced from the regular belt to a timing chain. So Proton says that this simple update will mean that the X50 will have lower maintenance. Well, time will tell, the car is still new, but for now, I'm quite happy with what I feel with this engine. So you hardly hear anything, and more importantly, you hardly feel anything. So when the car arrives, even though it's a petrol-powered car, it does not sound like a diesel. Now we go drive the car, and we'll end this video inside. So after spending some time with the new X50, I gotta say that the new X50 is probably one of the few cars that is worth doing a lateral move to. What do I mean by lateral move? By lateral move, I mean by moving from one X50, the previous generation X50, to this, the new X50. There are only a few cars that appear every once in a while where it justifies doing this. And the X50 is one of those cars. And just gotta let this massive trailer get past me. Look at this huge. And this is the perfect opportunity to actually showcase the power delivery of the new X50. And that is one of the key things about the new X50 is that this engine, this 4-cylinder engine, is just such a welcomed upgrade. Now, there was not much that was wrong with the previous X50, except that now with this, because it's so good, it showcases, or rather it highlights the flaws, the fundamental flaws of the previous model. So now I realize that the previous model had just too much of clatter. You actually felt the car quiver, and when you wanted to accelerate, you just had to wait a little bit longer. But not with this. This actually feels quite nice because it's with the addition of one extra cylinder, it's just really smooth. And I'm just not a fan. Let me just close this panoramic sunroof. So with the additional cylinder, it feels really smooth. Power delivery is just really smooth. But you really appreciate it during cold startups, because with the previous generation model, you heard a lot of that clatter and it sounded like a diesel starting up in the morning. Not with this. This is just really, really smooth. And I really like it for that. Now, power delivery has, of course, been improved as well. Now, power is, obviously, as I said earlier in this video, power is up as compared to before. There's more power as well as more torque. So right now, I am doing some speeds that I really shouldn't be doing on the highway. But if you notice one thing, that I'm talking to you in a very regular tone. I'm not really increasing my voice so that you can hear me. That's not the case at all. I'm just having a very conversational voice over here. And that is testament to the refinement of the X50. Now, if I can just get this car in front of me to move to the side so I can overtake him, I can actually showcase the power delivery of the car. But anyway, while I do that, I just got to show that when you're driving and you're suddenly feeling cold, all of the controls are located in the screen, right? But it's not very complicated. It's not like one of those systems where you have to go through 2 or 3 layers of menu just to adjust the air conditioning. Right now, I just got to do this. And I've got access to the air conditioning controls. Anyway, the road has opened up. I just flexed my right foot. That's just about less than half a second of lag. And I am at some very illegal speeds, guys. So, power delivery is just beautiful on the new X50. And I cannot believe that this is a car that's priced at 115,000 ringgit. You get a lot of car for this money. And I appreciate it for that. So in terms of driving modes, I've just left it in adaptive driving mode. So this adapts the car. So earlier, when I was in the town of Melaka, I was just driving very slowly, very regularly and such, and it just adapted accordingly. And now, it sort of knows that I'm asking for power very often. So it has adapted the car to this driving style. So you don't always have to be changing driving modes and such. It's not to say it's very difficult. You got to just swipe the menu down and there it is. It's just there. Previously there was a physical button for it, but it's just very easy to access your driving mode. So I'm not even going to complain about that. It's just very easy to do, very easy to live with. And now with adaptive, you can just leave it in adaptive and let it do its thing. It's that easy as well. Now, I've already said that refinement is really good. Comfort is decent as well. Okay, I gotta say this though, the suspension is on the softer side of the spectrum. Now, depending on what type of driver you are, you might appreciate this because it's quite comfortable for the family and such. But if you are the type that likes an engaging drive, you might find this to be a little bit too soft. But hence, this is after all a small SUV-ish or mid-size SUV-ish, and for that it's built somewhat for comfort, and it does that really well. However, I gotta say this, that after 135, 140 kilometers per hour, wind noise starts becoming prevalent in here. You start to hear a little bit of wind noise, you start to hear a little bit of the tire roar and such. So you just got to watch out for that. However, oh yeah, and there's another thing that I wish I had, and that is a shifter pedals behind the steering wheel. I wish it had shifter pedals because it's just such a nice powertrain now. There's just a ton of power that you can rely on and get up to some fun speeds really quickly, but that just adds to the character of the car. But right now, it just makes me wish that I had pedal shifters. Now, I can't remember with the previous generation one whether you could select the gears manually or not. I can't remember. It's been a while since I drove the previous X50. But with this, obviously you cannot, because the gear selector is now mounted on the steering column, so you can't adjust your gears accordingly, which is a bit of a shame, because if it had pedal shifters, it just would add such a nice sporty character to the flagship X50. So what do you got to know in conclusion in terms of driving dynamics of the car? Well, firstly, its power delivery is really good. There's just just a moment, less than a moment of a power lag, just double lag and such. But after that, there's just a wall of torque for you to ride on. And then after that, you're gonna appreciate the smoothness of the engine thanks to that additional extra cylinder. It just makes it, power delivery is just so smooth. Even the character of the engine is so smooth. I really appreciate it during startup. You don't get that quiver that you used to get with the previous X50, so you don't get that now. Besides that, the refinement, you see right now I'm doing about 118, and you can hear me clearly. I don't get any wind noise, I don't get any tire roar back in here. It's the refinement levels at below 120 kilometers per hour is just really good as well. And then other than that, you're going to appreciate the way the car delivers its power. So put your foot down and you just got to wait a moment and it'll just deliver that power as you want it. For me, I wish there were two things. I wish there were what do you call this, shifter pedals behind the steering wheel, just to add like a sporty touch to the car. I think if the flagship had that and Proton justified it by pricing it at 120,000 ringgit, it would still sell well. I cannot remember if there's any other car in this segment that comes with shifter pedals. I know the Honda HR-V hybrid does, but that's not to select gears. That's not for a sporty touch and such. That's more for the regenerative braking. I don't think there's any other car that comes with shifter pedals, so that will be a welcomed addition. And the second thing that I wish was the refinement levels at above 135, 140 kilometers per hour. You tend to hear some tire noise and some wind noise back in the cabin. But then again, one can argue that you really shouldn't be driving at that speed. But before we move to the closing of this video, I would just like to add two more points about the car. So, one thing that I found about the new X50 is that the seats can be quite firm. So over long distances, well, you're going to find that to be rather true, and that's putting it lightly. The seats are also a little bit on the smaller side, so you get a lot of bolstering at the sides and such, which is great. But if you're a big dude or dudette, or a big girl or guy, you're going to find this to be holding you rather tightly. It's very snug. So there's something to look out for with the seats. Now, again, I'm driving the flagship version, so the seats on this can be quite firm. Now, the other thing about the car is its fuel consumption. Now, it's not bad. In fact, it's improved over the previous generation model. So, the average fuel consumption, driving it from Proton Center of Excellence in Shah Alam to Melaka and back, and this is our test drive speeds and such, I saw a fuel consumption figure between 7.2 to 8 liters per 100 kilometers. I think I will only talk a little bit about the fuel consumption when I get to pick up the car and keep it over a longer period. I think only then will I have a proper indication of the fuel consumption figure. Right now, just driving it on the highway around Melaka, getting out of KL traffic and such, well, it's not a very proper indication of the fuel consumption figures of the new Proton X50. Now though, we can go to the closing. So All in all, the Proton X50 has undoubtedly been very impressive. Nice to drive, in fact. I like the smoothness of the power delivery, and I'm a real big fan of that new drive mode called adaptive. You can just leave it in an adaptive mode and it'll understand what you want. Very clever. There are things about the Proton X50 that you will not find in any other car, such as the darkened sunshade, which I think is brilliant and very important for our Malaysian climate as well. Now, I rely a lot on my sunshades, so that is actually quite important for me, at least. In terms of design, as I said, design is always subjective, but if you want a nice driving experience, if you have two young kids and you don't want to break the bank, then the Proton X50 might just be the car for you. It's spacious, it's comfortable, it's nice to drive, and I can imagine myself living with this on a day-to-day basis. Let me know what you think about the new Proton X50, and what do you think about the price range. It's obviously lower than before, but you get a lot more than you ever did with the previous generation X50. Thank you for watching, guys. As usual, do consider subscribing.